Hello and welcome, and thank you for joining us on our joint webinar on improving your CSR data and using business intelligence tools to add value. My name is Nicola Ainger and I'm the Key Account Manager here at SustainIt, and I'm delighted to welcome Katie Stockford from SustainIt.
Hello.
And Andrew Stark from Optimum PPS.
Hello.
So on to the agenda for today. First today, Katie's going to talk about CSR data quality. Specifically, she's going to cover the most common data quality challenges we face and some key techniques that you can use to improve data quality. Andrew is then going to introduce some business intelligence or BI tools and help you understand how using those tools can ensure your data is adding maximum value. The two key things you'll come away with today are an understanding of how you can improve the quality of your data and the BI tools available to help you use that data in a powerful way. Before we begin, I'd just like to do some housekeeping. Today's webinar is an hour long, and so we'll finish by 4 p.m. We have allowed 10 minutes at the end for questions, although you're welcome to post your questions here as we go along. We may not get through all the questions at the end, but we're happy to answer anything additionally via email after the webinar. We will share our contact details with you at the end too. Within the next day or so, we'll post the webinar on our YouTube channel and email everyone a link so you can share or revisit the presentation later. So before we start, just a little bit about SustainIt. For more than 10 years, SustainIt have been a key player in global CSR data. We were established in 2005 and have over 40 years combined experience providing managed and professional services to FTSE 100 and Fortune 500 companies. Our services include data assurance, sustainability software selection, implementation and support, as well as advice and training on how to collect and report all aspects of environmental, social and governance data. We support thousands of users on various sustainability platforms across the world. We work with them to improve the quality of their CSR data using some of the techniques we'll talk about with you today. Whilst we work with multiple software solutions and partners globally, we remain fiercely independent. This gives us the advantage of being able to offer our clients what they need rather than having to sell any particular product or system. So that's SustainIt in a nutshell. Now I'm going to hand over to Katie from our technical team, who's going to talk about CSR data quality. Katie.
Hello everyone. Today I'll be talking about the most common data quality challenges we face and some key techniques that you can use to improve your data quality. As we know, collecting and then managing huge amounts of data is an enormous challenge for any organisation. The key to managing data is in qualifying and guaranteeing the quality of that data so it can be interpreted and acted upon. Data quality must be addressed before any other action is taken. Companies with the most success in business intelligence are those that invest in tools and processes to make sure records are complete and accurate. Many large companies look to external consultants such as PwC for data assurance, but today we're talking about the practical steps you can take to improve the accuracy of your CSR data. In general, the worst mistake companies can make is to report findings using missing or incorrect data. To ensure a successful and accurate CSR report, companies must have clear and consistent data. Ensuring the data quality isn't always easy. You need to ensure that the data you're reporting will suit your purposes. Reporting 100 carefully selected KPIs accurately will ultimately yield more accurate data than poor reporting of 1,000 KPIs. So being sure of what to report needs to be addressed before you look at data quality. Overall, data can be defined as having 6 quality dimensions. The first dimension to data quality is completeness. This is ensuring there is no data missing from your data set. The second is accuracy. This is a key aspect of data quality, and we'll cover this in detail later. The next is uniqueness. This is avoiding any double entry or repetition of data for the same KPI, market, region or site in your dataset. The fourth key aspect of data quality is validity. This means reporting the data in the right way, such as using the correct units of measure. An example of this is in our next slide. Next is consistency. When recording data points, it is essential it covers the same thing in the same way every time. And finally, there's timeliness. This is one of the most common challenges we find companies struggle with, so I'll talk more about this shortly. There are many overlaps within these six aspects of data quality, but the two aspects we are going to look at in detail today are timeliness and accuracy. However, before we do, I'd like to share a quote with you from some research done into accuracy in CSR reporting. In 2011, a team of researchers at Leeds University, along with Euromed Management School in Marseille, France, examined more than 4,000 CSR reports and found significant irrelevant data, unsubstantiated claims, gaps in data, and inaccurate figures. Here is the first example of just how wrong it can go. This data error was caused by recording the data using the incorrect unit of measure. Kilotons was used instead of tons. Data inaccuracy like this can lead to companies having to restate their CSR data in later reports. Not ideal for supporting the credibility of your CSR report. On to the two specific areas of data quality we're looking at today. So why do accuracy and timeliness matter? In the field of sustainability data management, timeliness and accuracy are fundamental prerequisites when it comes to data analysis. Failings in either of these dimensions can compromise the usefulness of your data. Let's look at each in turn. Timing is everything when you're capturing, interpreting, and then acting on data. Firstly, does the data cover the correct time period? And secondly, is it reported and verified in time to meet your reporting deadlines? The second pillar of strong and reliable sustainability data is accuracy. This is the degree to which data reflects the real world. To quote the ISO definition, data accuracy is its trueness and precision. Trueness is how close the measurement is to the true value, and precision is the level of accuracy applied to the data. Verifying data accuracy isn't always easy, as slight inaccuracies will not paint an entirely unfeasible picture, and therefore comparison between real life and the dataset will not give cause for concern. In many data-driven processes, a high degree of accuracy can make all the difference, especially over long periods of time, when small inaccuracies can equate to quite fundamental errors. As we will see, there are some very specific ways you can improve the quality of your data. According to a KPMG survey, over 25% of the world's largest companies have issued restatements of past data in their sustainability reports, highlighting the need for improved data accuracy. So here are 3 key ways to improve the quality of your data. Ensure you have a continuous monitoring process in place. Ensure there is accountability for the data all the way up the reporting chain, and ensure that everyone involved in inputting, validating, and reporting the data is fully engaged in the process. We're going to look at each one in turn. So the first way to improve data quality is by implementing a continuous monitoring process. The important thing is to check the data as you go along. For example, if you report on a KPI monthly, then you'll need a robust process that will review that data monthly. Don't wait until the end of the year. With tight reporting deadlines at most year ends, checking the data sooner rather than later gives you more time to investigate possible errors and therefore reduce your stress levels. We often provide this service for our customers. It's known as DataWise. We plan and deliver a process to chase any missing data, and we also check the data to ensure it is entered correctly. You may not actually need to report the data until year end, but if you leave it until then, issues with data accuracy are far more difficult to sort out. It is also vital to create a robust process to validate your data. You can use trend and fluctuation parameters, tolerances against a preset limit or previous usage, as well as validation rules and manual reviews to help with this. Again, clients that have this process in place see significant improvements in the quality of their data. A lack of a validation process meant that one company reported that all of their Irish and Dutch employees did not travel at all during the entire year. A robust process designed to pick up anomalies would have spotted this, allowing investigation and resolution before this CSR report was created. Of course, a constant reporting of 0 can be as much, if not more, an issue than the numbers being suspiciously high. Finally, get the maximum help from the software you use. If you use a software solution to collect your sustainability data, this is one area where it adds huge value. Most solutions have a range of options for validating data on entry, from setting tolerances and preset limits to automating a validation process, whereby the data is checked and signed off, more of which we will cover shortly. Before we look at how to increase accountability for the data, I have another example from the Leeds University study I mentioned earlier. This one is from the ENEL CSR report. This situation might have been avoided if ENEL had a robust monitoring process in place. If they had perhaps benchmarked their CO2 emissions against the industry average or followed a validation process that contained a tolerance level. Next, we are looking at the second way to improve data quality. The second way to improve your data quality is by increasing accountability. A KPMG survey of current trends in sustainability reporting found that the highest quality reports came from companies where responsibility for data rested with a subject matter expert. An example of this would be where data entry is completed at a local level, perhaps a factory. The regional manager then validates the data by checking it is correct. Then the global manager validates a second time and provides the final check. This level of validation gives ownership of the data and will capture many possible data errors. Including responsibility for validation in the work objectives of those involved can also ensure it happens. One word of warning is to not let the person responsible for entering the data validate that information too. A minimum of a two-step validation process where someone else at least sense checks the data, even if they can't check it against another output for accuracy, is essential. Finally, transparency. Sharing data and making it visible across the organization is another way to improve quality of the data. One example is by publishing easy-to-read infographic reports so everyone can see what is going on. Our next slide shows what can happen when data isn't shared and no one is accountable. If both factories had reported the emissions, it would have been a case of duplication. But in this case, the data reported was incomplete. This slide covers a third and final suggestion for improving the quality of your CSR data. Engage with everyone responsible for the data. Understand the resource constraints and make it easy to report on time. Although systems are often complex, making it simple to report and making things such as a password reset straightforward can make a world of difference. Show the data in use. By reflecting back to the users where the data is used and how it relates to the company's mission can really add meaning to an otherwise thankless task of data entry or validation. Examples can include dashboards or infographics shown to users within the system. Involve everyone in the reporting process. Again, making sure that the reporting process is not silent and hidden can pay dividends. Whilst you might not get everyone excited to report data every day, everyone is much more involved if the data is visible and engaging across the company. To recap, the three main ways to improve your CSR data quality are to implement a continuous monitoring process, increase the accountability for the data, and finally engage with everyone who is responsible for the data. Now I will hand over to Andrew, who is going to talk to us about business intelligence tools.
Thank you, Katie. Let me just bring up our slides. Okay, so firstly, some background on Optimum, who we are as a company. So we're here, we support companies through their business systems journeys. From the start of that journey, so from the strategy development through to the selection of a tool set, through to the implementation, the continuous optimization, and then the ongoing support. Excuse me. And we, as I said, we as a company, that's our raison d'etre is to support companies and organizations through that journey. We're predominantly European based, and we do have clients all over the world though, with multiple bases, working from very large organizations down to smaller organizations in any of those areas. And again, covering all areas of the business system ecosystem or infrastructure, so ERP, CRM, and business intelligence, which is what we're here to talk about today. As you said, Katie, there is a lot of good things in data, and having those 6 qualities of data is key, and data is great. I love data. However, data is not of much use unless you can convert it into something, and that something is action. And this pyramid, I think, is a great way of showing where we can go from that source data. So we need to make sure that our data at the bottom of the pyramid has those 6 key characteristics. That we then want to move up the pyramid using tool sets and our inherent knowledge of that data to arrive at actionable insights. And so that can be something that will make us drive into a different direction. We get value from it. We can alter our course of action. We can make a change, or we can deliver on something that we've already got there. To get to those actions, we would be making predictions. Those predictions would come out of a different set of tools. And likewise, you can see further down the pyramid, we have different levels of information coming out from that source data, so reports, charts. As I said, there is value in all of that data, but we need to make sure that it's converted into action. The way that we do that is we look at 3 phases. So we have data integration, data warehousing, and then business intelligence. What we mean by data integration is the sourcing and the cleansing of the data. So as we all know, we've got Excel files all over the place. We've got CRM, we've got our CSR systems, we've got ERP. We've now also got all this data on machines with the Internet of Things. There is no shortage of data. But to get value out of that, we need to source it and cleanse it. If you picture an organization that has multiple source systems for customer data, for example, we need a way of pulling that together and cleansing and consolidating that data. And that's what data integration is about. Data warehousing is about storing the data, and traditionally that would have been on premises. As we move to the cloud, there are so many options out there nowadays. I mean, we'll cover that in a second, where the storage of data is no longer an issue. We've got data centers around the world now where they're storing petabytes of data. And when we think only 10, 15 years ago, we weren't able to store that very much in a thumb drive. But the key aspect today is on that business intelligence phase, that last phase. And that's where we're taking advantage of the work that's been done up until that point in order to get the information out and get the knowledge out of that data. So again, the three phases are just converting data to information and then onto knowledge that we can do something about. Data integration. Okay, so data integration is all about gathering and consolidating, as I said. So if you picture you've got multiple source systems that could be either on premises, it can be in the cloud, it can be anywhere nowadays. That data integration is going to gather it, consolidate it, cleanse it, aggregate it, because if you think your source systems may have a different granularity of data. So for example, if you're looking at CSR reporting data and it's down to a daily basis, you might not want to look at that on a daily basis. You might only want to look at that on an aggregated weekly basis or a monthly basis. And that's what our data integration phase is going to do. It's going to aggregate that data up. What's also possible or should be done in the data integration phase is getting that metadata, which is data about the data. So that can be what were the source systems, what date was it pulled through, who pulled it through. So you've got that traceability when you get to your business intelligence end of the phase. You can actually see where it's come from. So it's not a black hole that this data has just appeared. The tool sets that we use, there are multiple tool sets and there are several different vendors. Gartner have a quadrant on specifically data integration, and of which in the top right hand, which is essentially the leaders, they've got Informatica, SQL, so that's Microsoft SQL, but Microsoft are also offering their online solution now called Azure, which has a multitude of tools within there. But some key tools that are really interesting or really useful in this phase, and Katie, you touched on data validation. Master data management is one of those, and data quality and data profiling, and all of these tool sets offer that in there. So if you picture it can go through and it can, these tool sets can look at the textual data and it can pull out, well, this customer sounds like this other customer name, and we can double check, well, is it really the same customer? The system can give you alerts on that, which is really kind of cool if you think about it. We've now got machines that are thinking for us. Not totally. So that's the data integration phase of it. As I said, there's a multitude of tools there. I would say, personally, master data management is one of the key areas within there. Again, it's making sure that your data is in adherence to those 6 qualities, in particular accuracy. We then move on to data warehousing. So data warehousing is all about the storing and staging of information. So by staging, what I mean is, again, if we come back to that example where we've got multiple source systems, we want to pull them all together, but we want to stage them in some form. We want to pull them into one consolidated source. We don't just want to pull them into one consolidated source, though. What we also want to do is make sure that the next phase is able to access it and analyze it in the most optimal fashion. Again, if you think of the millions of records of transactions that we've got in a lot of our source systems nowadays, if you were to give that to someone in a report, it could take a long time for that to come through, whereas in the data warehouse, what you want to do is set it up in such a way that the answers come immediately. We're all like that nowadays. We all want an immediate answer. If we have to wait too long for a web page to load, we get frustrated. And that's what this phase is all about, is making sure that our end users have the best experience and that you guys get the answer out of your data that you want in the most timely fashion. Generally what we, generally what we also see in data warehousing, and as good practice, is to have separate data warehouses or separate structures based on the subject. This helps in end users being able to use the data in an easy fashion, and we'll touch on that in business intelligence. So for example, you might have a data warehouse for the finance department or finance function. You might have another data warehouse that's for the CSR function or the sales. And you would keep them separate, both for an ease of taking the salesperson's view. If they want to plug into that data warehouse to report on it, they're not going to get overloaded by all of data that might not be relevant to them. So having that integrated, subject-oriented data warehouse is a good idea to do. Time variant and non-volatile, what we mean by that is that your data, you could have it in different granularities, as I said. So you might want to be reporting on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, monthly basis, or even more long-term than that if you've got a lot of data behind you. Some of the tool sets that we're seeing for this data warehousing, and as I said before, there are lots of talk about moving to the cloud. Azure is one of those solutions, which is the SQL data warehouse. If you didn't want to go down the Microsoft route, there are other open source options that work extremely well. So you've got Postgres, MySQL, and of course for those of us that don't have the ability to fall back on a large IT infrastructure, they can go back to the Microsoft suite or even the Google Apps suite of applications nowadays, where we've got Excel, you've got Access databases. All of those types of things can also be used as data warehouses. Clearly they have their limitations. And when we talk about big data, they would not be suitable for big data. You would be wanting to go to one of the more established or one of the bigger cloud solutions for that. So for example, your Azure or your Amazon Web Services is another example of online data storage. Within the data warehousing, we have what's called relational, and then you've got cubes. Essentially, I mean, if you've got the option to look at cubes, then you do get a better performance out of that. You can build all of your calculations. So if you have a specific formula for some of your key metrics that you're reporting, you'll be able to build that into the solution so that the answer comes out quicker, essentially. So that's the data warehousing side of it. Again, it's pulling it in from multiple sources and giving the best access to people. We then move on to the exciting business intelligence side of it. And this area has moved on leaps and bounds over the last couple of years. We all see it every day now. We've got multitudes of charts. You open up a newspaper and go online to a newspaper rather, and the interactive charts, the BBC brought out one recently. They did a survey on age and demographics, and that was all built using some business intelligence and data visualization tools. And there are so many of them out there now that it can be quite confusing as to which one to choose. But essentially your business intelligence tools, what they're going to deliver for you or what you require out of them will determine in which way you go. The key things you would want though is it's going to give you access and delivery of data. So the business intelligence tool will sit on top of your data warehouse. You'll then be able to create the dashboards, the tools, the reports out of that. But the key thing in this business intelligence arena is about converting that data to information and then onto knowledge. So the way that that's done is, as I said, you've got reporting, dashboards, so dashboards and scorecards. Your reporting is generally over one data source. Dashboards and scorecards are going to look at multiple data sources and pull that all onto your one, I'm just going to say A4, but your one laptop screen, where you can see an overview of the entire organization or the entire area within that organization in one page. Data discovery, data visualization, analytics, and then data mining, these are all things that we wouldn't necessarily report on as such. These are more tools that you're going to use to discover about the data. So if you picture you've got your CSR data set that's got hundreds of different factories over there, you've got your metrics coming in, and you want to do some comparisons. You don't know what you're looking at. You just want to do a bit of data discovery. You just want to play with the data, see what it feels like, what's coming out, what looks not right. And some of these tools are used for that. So on the right-hand side, you can see that the main tools that are coming out nowadays is Power BI, Tableau, Qlik. These three are in the recent Gartner quadrant on the top right-hand side that came out in February. These are your main business intelligence tools, and these are well-established tools with lots of functionality. They're much of a muchness. It just depends on your budget and the desire to want self-service BI out of it. When we start talking about the discovery and the analytics and the data mining, then you're getting into a different tool set, albeit the top three are bringing some of these tools in there. You're mainly looking at things like R and RStudio. So that's an analysis package that's open source. It's running over R, which is used for statistics analysis in the majority of universities. Python is a programming language, but it has vast data science capabilities around it. So I think if I were to say, going down the list of business intelligence tools that we can see there, your top three are going to be, can I as an end user go in and have a look at my data without having to do any coding? Yes, easy to use. The bottom two, rather, Python and RStudio, it requires a little bit of programming knowledge, or if you know a good Excel formula, you can use RStudio. Python is programming. But the results you can get out of them are amazing. You can see some really great websites now that pull out some fantastic data visualization. So that's the business intelligence side of it. As I said, the recent Gartner quadrant came out in February. Microsoft's Power BI moved from the bottom left to the top right, which means it's becoming a leader in the field. For those of you that run Microsoft Office shop using Office 365, you'll find that it integrates really well with all of your existing applications. Furthermore, Microsoft are also they've got tools called Flow and Power Apps that touch in nicely to that. So for those of you that are already invested in the Microsoft infrastructure, that could be a good option. All of the solutions do allow you to email and distribute your reports and your visualizations to people, because it's not just about getting that information or that knowledge for yourself, but it's about sharing it and letting other people see what can be done. So all of the solutions will enable that. I'm just going to go on, and here you can see the Gartner quadrant. As I said, the latest one was on 16th of February, the same day that Microsoft did their keynote for Power BI. And you can see that the main leaders are the three big ones, Tableau, Microsoft, Qlik. Another one, for those of you that have the budget for it, that would be worth looking at, is across on the bottom left quadrant, is a tool called Alteryx. And what that can do is that can do quite a lot of the data integration, the cleansing. It won't do the storage, because these are tools that are going to sit and pull it all together, so it's called in-memory. But it'll do a lot of that consolidation for you, which is as good as a prototyping before you move to a more structured data warehouse. But as you can see from this slide, the market for business intelligence, there's a lot of options out there, which can be quite confusing. So what we recommend doing is sitting with the key people that will be using the information, ask them the questions that they're going to be asking. What do they want to find out from the data? If they don't know, maybe it's just being able to do that data discovery. And getting those requirements from the people in the business is going to determine what solution you go down. And not only the business intelligence solution, but then working with your IT team on how should we structure our data architecture and our information architecture so that people can get the best use out of that. We have some top tips for business intelligence, but I think actually these can apply across the board to any of your business system projects. Top one is make sure you've got buy-in from all levels of your organization, not just the top levels of your organization. But ensuring you've got that buy-in at the top means that the whole organization will be invested into it and will make sure that it's a success. Involve the business fully. So what we're finding now is, and certainly previously for those of you in organizations, I'm sure that you've been approached by business intelligence and other software providers as well. What they try and do is they want to get into the business and get it running that way rather than having it being an IT-led initiative, because at the end of the day, it's you guys that's going to be using it. IT, we're here as an enabler to drive the business forward. So you get the best success out of business system projects when the business is involved fully. It's not just an IT project. As with any project, you want to make sure you've got measurable and trackable objectives. And in an ideal world, these projects, you're going to be tracking them in a system, and you can run your business intelligence tool over the top. So you can see on a daily basis on your project scorecard or your project dashboard how each of your projects are running, which is a really good way of doing it. Avoid paralysis by analysis is another key tip. So as I said, what you'd want to do in a business intelligence project is get the requirements from the business. So what are people looking to get out of a business intelligence? What information do we think we're lacking? However, don't spend months getting this. Pick a couple of key areas and just go for it. Get some proof of concepts out there. Get the key reports that people are looking at, or the key data sets that people are looking at and struggling with on a daily basis. Just focus on them first, and then you'll get buy-in as well as momentum. People will be bought into the business intelligence solution. I've mentioned requirements as you go. Another tip, but it's almost a benefit of doing it this way, is that I'm sure we've all been in meetings where you've got one person on one side of the desk, another on the other, and they've got the same piece of information, but it's different. And the question is, well, whose number is right? The benefit of doing it this way and having that data integration and data warehousing is that those debates and that waste of time just disappears, because everybody's looking at the same information with the same definitions as well. There's so many organizations you go into, and a silly example, you ask someone, how do you calculate margin? You can ask someone in the same organization the same question and you'll get a different answer. Having this standard process means that the whole organization is talking the same language, which is what you want. You want to get rid of that time wasting there. Another point is don't go straight to products. As we saw in the business intelligence slide, there's a very wide definition of business intelligence. Are we talking about visualization, or are we talking about data mining, or are we talking about reporting? So depending on what your requirements are will drive the product that you get or that you choose. So don't go straight to product just because it looks really good in a demo, because it might not fit all of your requirements. Review annually. I think with any area within a business, it's good to have that annual review of, okay, we might be doing it really well, but let's just step back and see how we're doing it and review it. Is there a better way of doing it now? Things move on so quickly that there might be different solutions out there that will save us time or increase value in other ways. Linked to the paralysis by analysis is the don't boil the ocean. So again, if this is a more, if in your CSR areas you've got 100 reports or 100 reports that you want to be moving into a business intelligence project, just start with one. Get the key one up and running first, and then go drive that momentum that way, rather than looking at the list and going, we have to get all of these in within the next 3 months. Because what you might find as you go down that list is that just because someone said, I want a replica of that report in the new solution, doesn't mean they actually use it. Let's find out if they actually use it first before we replicate something in a new solution. And of course, you want to involve the right subject matter experts, which is yourselves. Me, I'm not a CSR expert. I wouldn't claim to be. So when I'm doing a business intelligence project that's revolving around CSR, I'd be coming to you guys to go, okay, can you explain this to me? What's the best way for us to define this metric? So you really need to involve those subject matter experts. And that is it on business intelligence from my side. I'll hand back to Nicola now, or Katie, I'm not sure who.
Wonderful. Thank you, Andrew, and Katie, for your presentations. Andrew, that was a fascinating introduction to business intelligence tools and how they can drive value. I think converting that data into information and then into knowledge that can drive the actions that you want is really key. And Katie, thank you for your presentation, sharing those top tips on how we can improve the quality of our CSR data. Was really, really helpful. Now what we're going to do is have a look at some of the questions you've been asking during the webinar. As you can see from the slide, hopefully on your screens now, that's where you can ask a question if you've got one. Hopefully you can see that in your screen. And I've got a couple of questions here, so I'll just have a look. Really, the first one I'm going to ask, Andrew, is to you. This is from Julia, and it's, how do I identify the best business intelligence tool for my needs? So can I give that one to you, Andrew, to have
Of course. So how do you identify the best business intelligence tool for your needs? It comes back to what your needs are. And I know it sounds silly, and I'm kind of asking the question back at you, but is your need do you just want to visualize something? Or do you actually want to manipulate in the bad sense, but do you want to discover things about that data? So is it just about reporting something? In which case you would look at a different tool set than one where you would be wanting to do statistical analysis over it, because business intelligence also covers statistical analysis. So it really does depend on the needs. I think I'm going to make some assumptions here, but I'm assuming that your needs are that you've got a load of data that you want to summarize and then distribute. And if that's your need, then you'd be looking at some of the tools like your Tableau, your Qlik, or your Power BI. So yeah, it depends on your need. Okay, but if you, I'm more than happy to, if people do have questions on specific requirements, of course we can take that afterwards.
Okay, well, Julia, I hope that answers your question. And if you want to get in touch with Andrew after the webinar, then his contact details will be on screen in a minute. So that's great. Thank you for that, Andrew. Katie, onto a question for you. When trying to improve data quality, how can a CSR system help save time and resources, especially when you compare that against Excel? Are you happy to answer that one, Katie? Are you on the line?
Yeah, of course. Yep. Hello. Sorry. One of the main benefits the CSR system has is it can automate a lot of the processes that you might have to do before you've got the data. So you can add validation rules and tolerance limits, which can be embedded into the point of data entry, so that this can prevent you having any incorrect data and help make sure the users know that there might be an issue and hopefully correct it before you receive the data. So therefore that will reduce you having to reduce the time it will take you to chase up any errors afterwards. Hopefully they'll be caught at the point of data entry. Another thing the system could do is you can set deadlines on when you need the data to be entered, and this will automatically send alerts to the people who are responsible for entering the data so they know when they have to have it. And this will hopefully mean you get the data in when you need it rather than having to wait a long time. Another thing is that users will probably have their data, especially environmental data, in lots of different units. So if you have a system, it means they can enter it in their unit of their choice, and the system will do the conversions for you, and that should reduce any errors there, and also allow you to make it easier for the users to enter it in a unit familiar to them. And then you can also create reports which will help you automatic reports that are quick to generate, and then they can help you in reporting and also help you with identifying errors.
Oh, well, that sounds good. That sounds like a long list of benefits for having a CSR system to improve that quality of your data, which is great. Which leads me to, in fact, another question on the system. This one is an integration between CSR systems and business intelligence tools possible? And are you aware about any particular combination between the two? And that one's for Andrew, definitely.
So if I've understood correctly, the question was, is there any specific integration tools between CSR systems and business intelligence systems? In which case, yes, there is. And I can say that with confidence because most systems in the back end are database based. Excuse me. So if you picture, and when you've got the slide sets, if we go back to that data warehousing slide, you'll see on there was SQL, Postgres, MySQL. Most systems have got a database as a back end. It'll be one of those three generally. And business intelligence tools nowadays, you can point it anywhere. So a very silly example is in Tableau. You can actually point Tableau onto your personal Twitter account and analyze your tweets. So you can, I mean, it's fantastic. So I encourage you all to have a look at it. It's really interesting. So yeah, any data source nowadays can be mined and integrated into your BI tool set.
Fantastic. Well, that sounds good. That sounds like an interesting thing to try on your Twitter account. Brilliant. Thank you, Andrew. I've got one more here. I'm taking turns, so I'm going to have one that I've got for Katie, which is, how does the system help you find and fix eventual gaps and mistakes? How would you proceed in order to fix the gaps once you found them? So in data quality, I think that question is about whether you've discovered, when you've discovered gaps and mistakes, how would you proceed to fix them? So Katie, I don't know if that one's a challenging one.
Okay, yeah, so one of the things I'd recommend is keeping a log of all the issues you found. So I don't know, in Excel or some other format that details any issues that you found or any missing data along the way. And then you can contact the people that are responsible for entering that data and get them to correct the data themselves is another thing I'd recommend, because then it increases their understanding of what was wrong and hopefully stop them from doing it again if they know the kind of mistakes that can be made. And you can also use this to help train other users. If you find that there's a really common mistake that keeps happening, then you could use that log as a training method for other people that weren't responsible for making that particular mistake. And if you have an external verification process, this would be useful for if you've already provided them with the data to do their verification. Then it's a tracker of why the data has changed since you gave it them, and also help them if they notice anything wrong. It might be a way to see if it's been addressed before and if it hasn't been resolved, or if it has, and the steps taken along the way. And then the system itself, if you have a system, it's easy enough to fix an error. You just go to the point of data entry and then just fix it there.
Great. Okay, that sounds great. Thank you for that, Katie. Which leads me to just one last question. We've only got one left, which is, what's the main reason for inaccurate data in your experience? And I've got some examples. User engagement, unclear processes, or lack of CSR system. What would you answer to that one, Katie?
One of the main errors we find is a pretty obvious one. It's where an incorrect unit of measure has been used in the data, which has been missed by the validation process. and because sometimes even if there is a multi-step validation process in place, it doesn't mean that that is going to fix it or prevent every error from happening, because sometimes the validators are just doing their job and they just press the button rather than actually look at the data. So it kind of comes back to all the steps of data quality here, is just don't just think one of them is going to resolve your issues. Try and incorporate as many of them as you can. They're all equally important. So if you'd educated the user on the validator on what it is that they're supposed to spot, then that would catch it, or involve a system, a subject matter expert, so that they know what they're looking for. And then by engaging, this is a way of engaging the users so that they know what it is, what the end goal of this data is. So I think the main point is just you have to address all the dimensions of data quality to try and prevent data issues from happening, and that's something to take away, and yeah, will hopefully prevent a lot of the errors that you might find.
Wonderful. Okay, well, thank you for that answer and for all those answers to our questions. That's the end of our questions, so the end of our webinar. If you do wish to continue the conversation with Katie or Andrew, please do get in touch. We've got a screen that's going to show you everybody's contact details. I'm hoping that Katie can share that with you now. There we go. That's all right. Thank you, Katie. There's Katie's and Andrew's email addresses. As I said at the beginning, that I just want to remind you the webinar is going to be published on our YouTube channel. So just search for SustainIt and you'll find this presentation along with our earlier webinars. And it just remains for me to thank Andrew for joining us from Optimum today, and to say thank you to Katie as well, and to say goodbye from all of us here at SustainIt. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the invite. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks, bye.
Bye-bye.